I think he sort of has found his footing a little bit as the head coach, as the defensive play caller here in the last couple of weeks. I mean, they've gone 3-2 in the last 5 after that awful start. So I think for Vic right now is just getting to the finish line, surviving the year, maybe win a couple more games, and then in the offseason you can put your further stamp on this roster.
But you think Vic Fangio is there to stay after this year? You think he still has a job next year, correct?
Oh, yeah, no problem there.
Okay.
Even if this season bottoms out, this was a transition year. This team was drafted very poorly after their Super Bowl year, and that means they have very little depth. And one thing I give a hat tip to Vic and his staff on is this team on Sunday is going to play a lot of guys on defense that weren't even here for training camp, acquired on waivers, acquired in a trade on Labor Day weekend. They've gotten these guys up to speed, and they're playing at an acceptable level.
We're here with Ryan Ohalloran, the beat writer for the Denver Broncos for the Denver Post. Ryan, let's just talk about the Vikings really quickly here, kind of get your opposing thoughts on them. What have you seen from the Vikings early on? After that Chicago debacle, losing 16-6, they've caught fire. They just beat Dallas on the road. Huge win for them. What do you see from Minnesota that's given other teams problems?
Well, the best thing that happened to Kirk Cousins was a healthy Dalvin Cook. I'll start right there. I mean, this is an offense that predicates on the run. They're third in rush percentage to set up that play action pass. And as Bronco players said this week, they take more shots downfield than any other team Denver's going to face this year. So they got to be wary of that. With Kirk, a lot of pressure with the contract, but the fact he's playing relatively turnover free, especially in the last 6-7 games, that's a positive. I think Gary Kubiak's influence cannot be discounted. I mean, this guy is an offensive. I don't want to say it's an offensive veteran. I don't want to say genius, but I don't want to throw that word around. But people would say, well, they gave up a lot of yards to Dallas. So what? They contained Ezekiel Elliott and they won on the road. That's what you got to do. You got to find a way. So I think the Broncos are running. This is the best team the Broncos have faced this year all around, and that includes Kansas City because the Chiefs' defense is not even close to the Vikings' defense.
Where do you put Dalvin Cook in terms of best running backs in the NFL? I thought he totally outshined Ezekiel Elliott on Sunday night. I understand it's one game, but I think his body of work the entire year, I mean, he leads the league in rushing yards right now. He's so valuable and so essential to that team's success offensively. Can pass block, can catch out of the backfield. Where do you rank Dalvin Cook as a back?
Well, all around, he deserves to be in that conversation with Christian McCaffrey because, as you pointed out, he can do things as a receiver. And when I worked in Florida, when Dalvin was at Florida State, sort of followed his career there and then followed it when he was in Minnesota. He said, okay, if he could just shake that injury bug, he's going to be a productive player because he's a physical runner who can also run away from guys. That's a great combination. So, I mean, through, 9-10 games this year, I put Cook in the same company as McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette. I really like the rookie Josh Jacobs from Oakland. And then Nick Chubb last night with his yards took the lead in the rushing contest.
Yeah, now tell you one thing, look out for this kid Alexander Mattinson, third-round pick out of Boise State, because he's also been very, very good for this Vikings team. Matchup-wise, Ryan, what are we looking at? What are you looking at? Do you see any huge mismatches, or are you interested in seeing, a wide receiver cornerback matchup? What are you looking at here on Sunday?
Well, I'll start with the Vikings on defense. Their front has a clear advantage over the Broncos front. The Broncos offensive line, their best guys are rookie left guard Dalton Reisner. If I'm the Vikings, I attack the edges with the Elijah Wilkinson, the fill-in right tackle, Garrett Bowles, the struggling left tackle. When the Vikings have the ball, assuming no Adam Thielen with an injury, expect Chris Harris to travel with Stephon Diggs. That's what Harris has done most of the year with the number one receiver because Broncos simply don't have a lot of depth at corner. And, with the tight end spot, can Alexander Johnson, the Bronco linebacker, can he cover effectively? Same with Todd Davis. Or does Vic Fangio go with more of a nickel dime look as his base to put Will Parks or Duke Dawson on one of those tight ends, specifically Kyle Rudolph?
Awesome job today. Ryan Ohalloran from the Denver Post. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Ryan Ohalloran. I just read his Derek Wolfe article this morning. Really good stuff. Ryan, I really appreciate you giving me time today, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
All right, thanks.
All right, Minnesota Timberwolves. Another positive story right now going on in Minnesota sports. It's like I don't even know what's going on. There's too many good things that are going on that it just seems like something's going to massively fail or massively crumble. I don't know if it's the Vikings. I don't know if it's the Wolves. I don't know if it's the Gophers. I don't know. It's very weird for me to be talking about everything in a positive manner. So let's get to the Timberwolves, who are 7-4. And I know people are starting to get excited now, and I see on Twitter, oh, new Timberwolves, new look. Oh my God, they're 7-4. If you're sold on the Timberwolves already, let me take you through a reality check, and let's look deeper at the past month, and maybe this will help you pump the brakes a little bit. Because yes, 7-4, it's good. It's good very good for the Timberwolves. But then when you kind of take a deeper look into the schedule, you kind of say, 7-4, okay. I mean, that's the least they should do right now. Let's look at their wins. At Brooklyn, decent win. Brooklyn's 4-6. At Charlotte, 4-7. Home against Miami, they're 7-3, but Jimmy Butler didn't play in that game. He just had a kid, if you don't remember. At Washington, well, they're 2-7. Home against Golden State in overtime, they're 2-10. They don't have Steph Curry. They don't have Klay Thompson. At Detroit, who's 4-8, and home against the Spurs, who are 5-6. They have beaten one team over 500, and that was the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. Do you know what that combined record is for those 7 wins? Again, the opponent's record on those 7 wins is 28-47. So that's what I'm saying here. And once again, it's early on, so some of these records are going to be skewed. But the bottom line is the Timberwolves haven't done anything special. They're doing what mediocre to good teams do. They're beating up on the really bad teams. I mean, Golden State is horrible. Washington is bad. Charlotte is really bad. These are teams that right now the Timberwolves should handle. Now let's look at their losses this year, because that's more of the eye-opening stat. So the losses this year, and there's only been 4, are to Philly, who's 7-4. They lost to Philly by 22. 22. Then they're at home against the Bucks, who are 7-3, now 8-3 after last night's win, and they lose by 28. Then you lose to Memphis, who's 4-7, by 16. And you lose to Denver, who's 7-3, by 2 in overtime. That's the real stat, okay? The combined record for those 4 teams are 25-17. And 3 of those losses were by over 15 points. You lose to Philly by 22, you lose by Milwaukee to 28, and you lose by Memphis by 16. So that's what I'm saying here. And, and I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, all my Timberwolves lovers out there, because I'm starting to get into it as well. I think it's a new-look team. I like the way they've been playing. But I think it's kind of foolish for people to think and go on Twitter and say that, oh, the Timberwolves are going to really be good, or they're really good right now, or they're 7-4, we really look good. Well, hold on. Go look at the teams that the Timberwolves have beaten up on. It's kind of like a paper tiger in a way. It's like, okay, you're the big bad bully, but then when you face the big teams like Philly, Milwaukee, and Denver, you shrink. And the reality of the situation is, and do I think they can compete for an 8 seed? I do, but that's the furthest I think they can compete for. I don't think they have any chance to get a 7 or 6 seed. The reality is, the Timberwolves aren't better than the Lakers. The Lakers are finding their groove right now with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The Timberwolves don't match up against the Lakers. They don't match up against the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, Lou Williams, Paul George when he comes back, Doc Rivers. They don't match up well against the Jazz, the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Blazers. Well, maybe not the Blazers, because they just got Carmelo Anthony, which doesn't make any sense to me, and Dallas. Those are 7 teams right there that are completely better than the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you're leaving that 1-8 spot, which I don't think is unattainable. I think they can easily make an 8 seed. But I think everyone's kind of got to pump the brakes on the Timberwolves are going to really compete for a top-tier seed and how good they feel right now. Hold on, let's just see how they do against the cream of the crop. And we've seen kind of a small sample size of what they've done against the cream of the crop in Philly and Milwaukee. They've lost by 22 and 28. Now, I will talk about the good that I've seen. because I'm not ready to jump full bandwagon on the Timberwolves. They don't have particularly the greatest history, okay, that I can sit and say, oh, well, they started this back in here, and then look at what turned out to be. I mean, this is the Minnesota Timberwolves we're talking about. This is probably the worst franchise in Minnesota sports right now. Let's be honest. I mean, they've been to one playoff appearance in, 20 years? I mean, they snapped a streak of 16, 15 when Jimmy Butler finally came here and made it to a playoff appearance and only won one game against Houston. I mean, that's the franchise we're talking about. So I can't get all giddy about the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 7-4 right now after beating up on the bottom feeders of the NBA. But let's talk about the good really quick, because there's been good signs. Karl Towns. He's growing in to not only a leader, but he's given himself an identity of kind of this no BS taken, tough guy that's not going to back down from anyone. Who won the fight against Joel Embiid and Karl Towns? I don't care. It wasn't a fight. It was a slumber party. I mean, it was a pillow fight. Let's be honest. Okay? But Karl Towns has really grown into sort of this tough guy where he's not going to take any smack anymore. I wish Andrew Wiggins had a little bit of that in Karl Towns. But I think Karl, for the most part, 25 points per game, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 40% from three from a 7-footer is magnificent. I think Karl Towns has been a big, big bright spot so far this season. And I think the signs that we kind of all were looking for in terms of, in order for this franchise to get to where they want to be, Karl Towns needs to continue to have his success that he's had the last couple of years and do it when they win games. I think that's another big part and a big thing in a player. When they're putting up great numbers and they're losing, it's like, that's kind of the Kirk Cousins, stench, right? It's like Kirk Cousins plays well in this time, but he loses. He puts up 400 yards, but he loses. I think one of the most underrated stats or underrated characteristics of a great player is he puts up great numbers and they win. So I think Karl Towns has been great so far. Andrew Wiggins. Now, once again, this is another, we talk about premature 7-4 Minnesota Timberwolves. I think it's also premature to say Andrew Wiggins is back or Andrew Wiggins is, forgiven from Minnesota. It's been 11 games. Now, the 11 games have been pretty damn impressive. Averaging a career-high 25 points per game right now. It's 13th in the NBA. His player efficiency rating, which was awful last year, is now up to 21.1. He's got career highs in field goal percentage at 47%, and that's just a product of him going to the basket. And I know Saunders has been begging him, stop taking mid-range shots. It completely diminishes your field goal percentage because, A, no one's taking mid-range shots anymore. It's not 1990. And everyone's taking threes and layups. The mid-range shot has become extinct here. Saunders wants nothing to do with Andrew Wiggins making 5 dribble moves, a spin, and pulling up at the elbow. That's not what the NBA is right now. So that's why Andrew Wiggins' field goal percentage has skyrocketed, is because he's getting to the rim a lot more. Also, career highs in rebounds, which is another critique of his game. He's at 5 rebounds right now. And assists, 3.3. I mean, this is a guy in Andrew Wiggins who averaged like 1 assist last year. Can't happen. Can't happen. He's too athletic to not average more than 3-4 assists. And honestly, the rebound should be up too. Andrew Wiggins is a freak. I mean, he's 6'7", can jump through the gym, and has pretty good strength at his size. He needs to average 6 to 7 rebounds a game. Now, baby steps here, so I've got to give him some credit. And I think the biggest thing, other than stats, is that he's engaged on the floor. He looks like he's locked in defensively, and he's having fun. And honestly, as kind of cliche as that sounds, you want to have, make sure you're having fun. Well, when did it ever look like Andrew Wiggins was having fun out there until this year? It seems like he gets along with the guys a lot more. It seems like when he makes a big play, he's getting excited, he's high-fiving, he's smiling. And I think that's a big part in growth. I think for a lot of years, Andrew Wiggins kind of looked at it as, all right, I'm just going to play basketball, I'm going to go home, I'm going to count my money, and I'm going to do it all over again tomorrow. I think that's kind of the mentality that Wiggins has had. As Jimmy Butler left, I think the Timberwolves had to really sit and talk to him and say, hey, are you going to be our guy? Are you going to be a leader? And are you going to take this franchise to the next level? And in order to do that, you've got to change your whole attitude and mentality. And I think I've seen that so far through 11 games. Premature? Yes, but very good signs, 100% so far with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The depth also looks good. I mean, Jake Layman, I really like this kid's game. He can shoot the ball. He can defend at good length. He's really been a vital part of that bench so far. Josh Okogie, we know